Good afternoon, everybody, in the room and online. Hopefully, in the next 20 minutes, you're going to hear something a little bit different, because I know I'm here talking about a track conference, but the Southern Renewals Enterprise particularly, and I'll talk you through it as I go through the slides, is about a portfolio approach. So whilst track is really important to what we do, it's only one part of the jigsaw puzzle that we need to bring together in terms of the whole renewals portfolio. So what I'm going to talk through is I'm just going to do a reminder for those of you who might not know what the Southern Renewals Enterprise is all about. And then I'll talk through how our model works. And then what I actually want to cover at the end is just some of the innovations, some of the things that our model is starting to drive in the way that we're delivering things. So the first thing I wanted to cover was who are we and why are we here? Well, the first thing I'd say is that this is a first for the rail industry. All of you will know, so we've talked about a lot of the track alliances that are here. There's lots of alliancing that's probably happened within the industry, but this is the first time that the rail industry have chosen to pursue an enterprise model, and it's the first time an enterprise model has been chosen for renewals and not an enhancements or a major projects type delivery portfolio. So it's a first. It's also a great opportunity, and my team, who've heard me talk about this a lot, is Einstein's definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. If we are going to continue to procure and deliver in the way that we always have, nothing will change. So this is a great opportunity for change. But it takes courage to change, because we're also asking people who've been in our industry a very long time to do things in a very different way. And I'm just going to play a video now that I think really kind of puts into context kind of the reason for the SRE forming and how people feel about it.
I've been on the railway for over 30 years, from British Rail through to Network Rail, and there hasn't been a day gone by where we haven't faced some kind of challenge or another. But this simply feels like crisis point. We have economic uncertainty, post-Brexit and post-COVID, and we're under increasing pressure to deliver more renewals to our Victorian infrastructure than ever before, with tighter timescales and less budget. We simply have to change, or we will not survive as an industry. But we have the people, we have the experience and the knowledge. We just need the structure to enable us to play to our strengths and deliver a railway for the future, fit for our customers, our passengers and the country. My question to you is, how do we make this happen?
In Southern, we have a heritage of delivering innovation successfully, and SRE will be no different.
This is an amazing opportunity for us to collaborate, to bring together our experience, our knowledge, our expertise from across all of the disciplines that we have.
Not to be overly dramatic about it, but the future of rail renewals in the UK could be at stake here. You know, I see this as the next evolution of how we should be delivering in the UK. Corporately and as a unified collective, we have every ambition to ensure that this succeeds.
Between us, we are much stronger than individuals, and our collective experience and knowledge will help us deliver both efficiently and effectively.
This is a fantastic opportunity to deliver a more affordable and profitable railway, to deliver in a cleaner and greener way than ever before, and to leave a positive legacy for the next generation.
Always safe, always on the side of passengers and freight users. It's up to us. Welcome to the Southern Renewals Enterprise.
So I think as Terry put it, so we've always had the people in the industry and we've always had the knowledge and the expertise, but what we needed was the right structure to make a step change. And that's what the Southern Renewals Enterprise is here to do. So how does our model really work? So you can see the model there in front of you, and an enterprise model is, for us, is split into three parts. One is the capable owner, one is the SID, which is the part I lead, and then one is the other part is the ecosystem, which is the name we give to the supply chain. And I'm going to talk you through each one of those and what it really means. So firstly, the capable owner. So the capable owner owns the asset. So that does what it says on the tin, but they also own things like the work bank. So in owning the asset, they own the work bank and they own the definition of the condition of that work bank and the setting of priorities. They then define the output-based remit of the work that needs to be done by the delivery arm of the enterprise on that work bank. Output means we're going to renew the track from X chainage to Y chainage, and it needs to last X number of years. That's it. There's no detailed specification. There's no over-engineering, preferential engineering. They specify the outcome, the output that they want from that piece of work. And then the capable owner assures that asset back into service once the work's been done. So we hand the documentation back over and they assure that we have done everything that we said in line with the output-based remit. The SID is the other half of that coin. So we are the part of the enterprise that then delivers the work. And what are we here to do? Well, we are here to plan the delivery of the work bank. And that doesn't just mean planning it as if it's a project. It also means planning when it needs to be done by. It might mean integrating those different work banks across the disciplines to do it in the most efficient, effective way. What the asset managers will do to us is give us a work bank that needs to be done and it has to be completed by date. So we've then got the freedom to plan that work within the control period as to when it needs to be completed by. We then specify what that work looks like. So the asset management team and the capable owner will give us an output-based remit, and we should then develop that into a detailed specification that meets minimum viable product. That does not mean the cheapest. It means the minimum viable product to meet that output-based remit. And sometimes that might mean the most carbon-friendly solution. It might mean the cheapest, because that's the right thing for that situation, and anything in between. But we specify to minimum viable product. What we then do is undertake the work, and we specifically in the model talk about assemble, because what we want to do is move the construction work that we do from construction more into that production type mentality. So we assemble the work, and track actually as a discipline is far more along on this journey in terms of kind of production than some of the other disciplines. But we then assemble the work, we then hand it back to the capable owner, who obviously assures the work that we've done and makes sure it's handed back appropriately. And we go around that cycle. We're made up of 5 partners. And for those of you who didn't know, we have 5 partners, including Network Rail. So the Network Rail partner is Works Delivery, who undertake the smaller, in terms of project size, but multidisciplinary part of the work. We have Volker Fitzpatrick, who do the buildings and civils work. We have Volker Rail, who do the track. Octavius do the E&P. And Atkins Realis do the signalling. And we share that work, we award work between the partners on a best for portfolio basis. And to put things in context, about a third of the portfolio is buildings and civils in the control period, About a third is works delivery, so the smaller multidisciplinary work, and about the other third is track, signalling and E&P, with track being the biggest of that third in terms of the work that we undertake. The SID partners are also in it together on a win-win, lose-lose basis, and I'll talk a bit about our commercial model that drives some of the kind of positive outcomes that we're looking for in a second. But of course, we could not deliver what we do without the ecosystem. And the ecosystem is our supply chain that works with us. Our contract is for 10 years, so for 2 control periods, and we intend to contract and have contracted already with our ecosystem on a 10-year basis, exactly the same. So we can give them that long-term commitment to work, that visibility of the work bank, to not just drive the commercial benefits that might bring in terms of better rates, but also to drive the innovation and the great ideas, so we can work together to really make sure that we're investing in delivering for the next 2 control periods. But the ecosystem does mean getting closer to fewer sometimes, and that can be a really difficult conversation to have with our supply chain, but we want to build those long-term relationships with fewer, particularly around safety critical staff, for example, and around plant procurement as a good example of that. But we can't lose sight of the fact that the enterprise is wider than those 3 parties that I've talked about. We have a really, really close relationship with the routes, and part of my leadership team has 3 people called Route Renewals Directors, and they represent each of the routes that are based within the region. And that's to make sure that when we're having conversations about where projects might sit in the work bank by year, we can also be having the right conversations with the routes about, well, if we do it in year 4 instead of year 2, what impact does that have on your maintenance budget? Is there perhaps more that you need to do around maintaining that asset to allow us to deliver the work in a more efficient, streamlined way? As I'm sure you'll appreciate, one of the things that's important to us, to all of the 5 partners, is making sure that we've got a kind of nice level, kind of more streamlined work bank through the whole 5 years, so we don't have a light year 1, a really busy year 2, 3 and 4, and then we drop off in year 5. So part of what we do when we plan the work bank is make sure that we level it off. So we need to make sure that we're talking to the routes and making sure that they're on board with the decisions that we're making. But as an enterprise, so that's the capable owner, the ecosystem and the SID, we are driven by our 5 outcomes. I'm not going to read them out, you can see them up on the screen. But one of the things that I feel really passionately about is this is the first time that a renewals portfolio can really step into the space that we might have previously thought of for major projects. And what do I mean by that? We can actually fund, and actually already have funding that our ecosystem and our partners are matching, to start setting up our own apprenticeship training school across the disciplines. Renewals have never been able to do that before in their own right. We're also able to add social value. It was with great pleasure that I saw Mark Killock, who's the capable owner lead in the region, standing up at the supplier conference and showing that the Southern Renewals enterprise has delivered 100 times more social value already in the first 7 months to the region than any other part of the region to date. Again, that is normally something that only major projects can do. We also want to make sure that we drive a step change in safety culture. It really disappoints me that having been out of rail for 7.5 years, I came back in and felt like I'd never been away, because nothing in 7.5 years has changed from a safety perspective and how we do things. So there's an opportunity to really make a step change in that space. But not to lose sight of the fact that we also have recognised that being profitable is not a dirty word. And I'll talk a bit more about our commercial model in a second, but being affordable is the being efficient and effective, but it's actually quite right and proper that the partners and our ecosystem should make money and be successful in as part of this. And that's the win-win model that we've been trying to build. So you can see the weightings here. Again, I'm not going to dwell on them. Some surprised eyebrows are raised that safety is lower than some of the other areas, like, for example, happy customer. And particularly around affordable and profitable, which is definitely the heaviest weighted of our outcomes. But actually, one of the reasons for this isn't to suggest that safety is not important, but if you've worked in any business, a profitable business is always safe. So the affordable and profitable comes with with being safe. And so we are measured against it, but it's not actually the highest weighted of our KPIs. Positive legacy is also really important to us because we've got skills shortages that have come and are coming in our industry. We've got an ageing workforce. We've got people that we need to train and develop and make sure that we continue that legacy going. So not only can we be more efficient in how we deliver renewals, but we're actually developing people for the future who can carry on and take over from us. When, in my case, you might be driving your camper van around Europe, which is what I would like to be doing when I retire. So how does the model work? Again, I'm not going to read this up word for word, but to be really clear, that for the 4 of the partners are obviously contractors, and the partners only make profit if they deliver 92.5% of the effective volumes. So we could be really efficient across the portfolio, but if we miss our key volumes, we make no money whatsoever. So that's a really important point that I just sort of wanted to reinforce. So what does that actually tell me? Is that actually the capable owner, the routes, as well as our own team within the SID, should actually want the partners to make money. Because if the partners are making profit, we are delivering successfully. And that's a real step change in thinking about how we're delivering. But I'm going to show the model here in a bit more detail. And what does that really mean? So it also doesn't mean that if Track deliver really well, they get their profit and no one else does. It means everybody has to deliver 10% as an average across the partners for us to be efficient. And the sweet spot you'll see in the middle, and that's why I talked about the 10%, is not only do we have to hit a minimum of 92.5% across all of our key volumes, we also have to make a 10% efficiency just to mark time. So for the partners to get their 1 times profit, we have to actually hit 100% of our volumes, and we have to be 10% efficient just to deliver it effectively. And then the dotted line you can see, which is the modifier up and down, is how we're modified for then component 2, which is the other 4 outcomes. But what does this mean? Well, actually quite a lot of our key volumes are in things like Track. So we may be in a space on a portfolio approach when Track may not be efficient, and going back to Brian's point, it's not that they're expensive, but it's difficult to deliver to the unit rate for various reasons. But actually, we've been really efficient across buildings and civils and E&P, so we've made our 10% efficiency, and actually that's okay. So we can still deliver the volumes we said. We're really efficient on some, might not be efficient on others, but we are 10% efficient as a minimum overall. That's how the model works. So it's driving a decision by portfolio, across the whole portfolio, not by asset type or discipline. So it really, really interesting way of modelling. And then we have, when we go into the top right-hand corner of that box, that's what we call stretch volumes. So we have £266 million worth of work bank IDs, of projects identified, that if we deliver more than 10% efficiently, get varied back into the work bank through the control period. And to put things in context, for every £1 that we are more efficient, 85 pence of that goes back into delivering more renewals across the region. So that's how the model works. But again, if we don't hit 100% of the effective volumes, we could be 25% efficient. The partners won't go into 2 times their profit. So the effective volumes and delivering efficiently have got a really, really close link. And again, I'll just reinforce it is delivering across the portfolio, not by discipline. So there are some things that have gone really well since we started, and it's really hard to believe, and those of you who've been in renewals for a long time will know it's quite relentless. So we've only been going since the 2nd of April, but some things have gone really well. So what is it that's gone really well? So I've been tracking, as I know most of you will have done for previous control periods as well, how we've been delivering against CP5 and CP6 within Southern. And we've been delivering actually £20 million more each period than at the start of either of those 2 control periods, because we've hit the ground running and have been delivering. And you can see up on the screen on the first slide just exactly how much we delivered. So over 6,800 work sites actually to date. And we've delivered a significant amount of our volumes. And actually until last period, we were exceeding our volumes by about 150. And that's because we reprofiled the work bank, so we delivered more at the beginning rather than less at the beginning and more at the end of the first year. The work bank is more mature than any time that I've seen across any of the control periods. So I know what my work bank is to the end of year 5 of CP7 by discipline and by asset type, etc. We're also able to share that information with the supply chain so that they can help us on that journey. And also, they know what's coming for their own businesses in terms of procurement and allowing them to plan how they're going to manage their own businesses, which has been really good. The transparency and maturity of the safety culture, and this is a really sort of two-edged sword for me, I think, because we have seen more accidents and incidents than I'm comfortable with. Interestingly, less than at the start of CP5, which is probably the most comparable of the control periods, more than CP6, but it's still not in a place where I feel we need to be, and particularly around operational close calls. So We have got a really transparent safety culture, and I'm really glad that people are reporting things, but there's a lot more that we need to do in this space to get it right. We've also set up, as I talked about earlier, our social value team, and that's already been driving some really positive outcomes in working with our local communities, as well as just adding value to the region as a whole. We've also got some fantastic resourcing support. So we're resourcing across 5 partners. Our portfolio is about £3.3 billion so far, and that is a lot of resourcing to make sure that we can support just our own core team as well as ecosystem. We've got some great communication, and if those of you don't know, we've got a LinkedIn page. Please like us, please follow us, so you can keep abreast of some of the great stuff that we're doing. And we've actually formed our SLT, which is really good, and 30% of the SLT is actually women, which is quite unusual for our industry. And we are measured as part of our positive legacy around the diversity more broadly that we will bring to the region, which is really positive. And there's some great pictures here that I just wanted to share, which talk about some of the great things that we've done. So we've done some really complicated projects as part of our work bank delivery, even in the first half of the control period. And I spend a lot of time coming to places like this and others, telling people about the work we've been doing and kind of just selling the story of the SRE. But one of the final things I just wanted to touch on before I finish was integrated work bank planning, which is one of the key things I think we're here to do. So having a maturity and knowledge of the work bank, we have plotted our work bank by space and time, if you like, something very similar to I know what North West and Central are doing. And what that's allowed us to do is identify areas of work bank where, and a good example that I've got here is Tunbridge. So when we plotted the work banks and the renewals that we were being asked to do, we were asked to come in and do the track in Tunbridge in year 2, and we were then being asked to do the drainage in year 4. And the drainage is shot. So that means we'd then spend 2 years trying to maintain the track, and then come in and do the drainage. And there was other discipline work, some earthworks, happening in the same location. So what we've actually been able to do is identify those areas, and Tunbridge is one example of about 150 that we've identified through the control period, where we can bring work together and integrate it to make it more efficient. And what that actually means is that in Tunbridge specifically, we've actually been asked for a 7 to 9 day block, so we can come in and integrate all of the work. And here's an example of Tunbridge here. So we don't know yet in reality whether integrating the work really drives efficiencies. And integration can be anything from integrated surveys, so we make sure we do surveys once in the same place with the same data set so that we can then reuse it, that we only move badgers once. We don't, a horrific story about moving badgers 200 metres down the track because we were only working here, and then a year later we came and moved them again. So it stops those kind of things. It seems really straightforward, doesn't it? But by plotting the work bank, we're able to manage those things now, even if it might affect things that will happen in year 4 and year 5. So we are testing 2 integrated work bank sites because I feel there is efficiency to be had in integrating the work bank. But I am also conscious that integrating work sometimes makes us less efficient because coordinating around each other can be difficult. So we're having a look at that. We're trialling 2. It'd be really great to come back at some point and tell you whether or not we really think it's been efficient with the pounds in the ground across the disciplines, so that we can show you that it's been efficient. But that's been one of the huge strengths that we've brought. So 150 opportunities to integrate we've identified already, and we're starting to move those forward. And some we've actually already done in the first 6 months. So as I touched on, we've got a LinkedIn page. We share lots of the stories around this integration on that. And please do feel free to follow us and like us. And that's all I had to say. So thank you.